So it's just now 1 o'clock in the morning, and I kind of wanted to talk about, want to just empty my thoughts right now. I realize in the past few years since I returned to YouTube that I never really sat down and told my story and talked about what really happened in the military and with my marriage. I wanted to talk about why, because every time I have talked about it even a little, I'll end up deleting the video or privating it. It took me a while to realize why it was so hard to talk about it. The reason why I can't talk about it, and also why I probably won't explicitly tell my story for a while, is it's not because it's painful to talk about, even though it is. That's not the reason, and it's not because it's private. It's because I realize that I am not quite at the point where I can handle any kind of invalidation. Since leaving my husband, I am definitely a different person than I was when I left. The first year and a half was a nightmare, literally, because the PTSD symptoms started coming up. So I literally was having nightmares. I was paranoid. It was just horrific. It was in some ways almost worse than what I went through itself. I definitely am a better person than I was before any of this even happened in some ways, but I am not at the point in my healing that I can shrug certain things off. The internet is the internet. There are always going to be bullies. There are always going to be certain types of people to the end of time, and you're always going to have bullies in real life that will say horrible things to your face, but there are a lot of cowards, and the internet allows them to say things that they would never say to your face. It's one thing to say, if you're going to do anything on the internet, whether it's put a video out or talk in a forum or anything, that you need to understand that people are going to be nasty. And that's true. It doesn't make bullying right, but unfortunately you have to expect that possibility. And this is one topic that at this point in my life, I can't handle it. We have this kind of thought process on the internet that no one wants to believe anything that anyone says, and everything is fake. Every video that comes out, every story that's told, oh, that's not real, that's fake. I don't know how we got there. I don't know if people just don't want to be gullible, but no one wants to believe anything. And when it comes to our government and when it comes to rape, no one wants to believe anything. There are people who would never want to believe that the government's creepy, and it's like there are people who literally don't believe that rape and abuse exists. If you ever come across a video on YouTube where you have anyone, male or female, talking about any kind of abuse, the amount of victim blaming and victim shaming is just, it's almost inconceivable. It's ridiculous. It's like, how can you talk to a person like that? Instead of holding the abuser accountable, we have this culture where, well, why didn't you call the police? I don't understand. Well, if this really happened, why? Well, I don't think that doesn't make any sense. And it's just, considering the nature of my story, I can't tell it because I know I can't handle that. I can't handle at this point, and it was hard for me to admit this because it makes me feel like I'm a weak person, but I know that I can handle people saying stupid stuff to me. I am no stranger to bullying. I've pretty much been bullied, my entire life. I mean, I probably hold the distinction of someone who's been teased and bullied literally from kindergarten to 12th grade, okay? And then after that, people still treated me like it was a joke. But this one topic, this one issue, I cannot at this point handle anyone in person or on the internet either outright saying or implying that I'm lying or exaggerating the story or, making up conspiracy theories. I can't do it right now. I know that one day I will be able to handle it. I will be able to say, well, if people don't believe me, don't believe me. But what you need to understand that is that part of the story includes an element of invalidation. It includes an element of being called a liar. And that element is present in tons of other people's stories. So you already have this trauma that involves being called a liar. I don't want to be called a liar by a bunch of people. One thing I can understand is if someone were to ask me for sources. Because, of course, if you're going to claim thousands of veterans been through this, of course it makes sense that people would say, well, where are you getting your information from? That is understandable. In the meanwhile, we have people out there who have been brave enough to tell their stories. And it's sickeningly identical to mine. That's what is angering about it. So if you want to hear my story, or at least the story similar, either because you're genuinely concerned about me or because you're morbidly curious, which I can't fault you for because that's human nature. We want to know every stupid detail of things. I know everybody says Google it, but believe it or not, you can find some information, reliable information about my story. Trust me, you can literally just take the person telling the story out of it and place me, and it's the same thing. Trust me when I say this. I don't know what search engine you use. There are certain keywords that you can search for that will bring you very good results. You can even search for it on YouTube because there is stuff on YouTube that you can find. As far as articles and things, real articles, not fake news, even articles from the Navy Times, Army Times, I mean, real stuff. You can find it on Google, and as people say, the receipts are there. Just so you understand one thing, the government has never denied my story. The government has never denied that they did the things they did. So this isn't a conspiracy theory. They admitted it. The investigation was done federally, and the Navy, which was my branch, is the biggest offender. They did do this. They said, yeah, this happened. They also said, we're not going to do anything about it. I believe it was the Surgeon General of Obama's administration that said, it's too time-consuming to go through all the records of people who were unlawfully misdiagnosed with this and denied their benefits, which is a slap in the face because I don't give a damn about the government and their time. But actually, the truth is they don't have them. They don't want to be giving people a bunch of money, especially if they legitimately have a disability claim. That's a lot of money because it would have to go retroactively. If they were willing to give out that much money, they wouldn't have done what they did in the first place. Keywords, a good keyword if you were to search personality disorder and military. You should get a good amount of articles and you can find numbers. Like, this is not a theory. This is not speculation. You can get the good stuff. This is not top secret information. This isn't something the government sealed. It's public domain. You can also, you might find some hits with like purposeful misdiagnosis military. You might be able to find something because all these people that went through what I went through, they were diagnosed on purpose with a personality disorder that they didn't have because it not only allows you to be discharged when they don't want to have veterans back for whatever their situation is, but it also makes it so they aren't able to get benefits, which obviously I've gotten anyway, but it's not the benefits I should be getting at this point, and they will never give me those benefits. It's not a secret, and it's not a surprise. To a lot of veterans are not surprised. They will admit it's messed up, but they're not surprised. As a matter of fact, there was one day I had an appointment at the VA clinic because this social worker came from Reno and wanted to talk about living wills, which is basically your wishes if you're in a situation where you're unable to speak for yourself. One of the people who went to this appointment was maybe about 67 or something. So I gave him like a little snippet of my story because I feel comfortable talking to other veterans, and he didn't blink an eye. He was like, oh yeah, they did that for Vietnam. They called it budget cuts. They screwed a lot of veterans out of their benefits. That's why they're still on the streets now. There are some Vietnam vets that are just now getting their benefits. Government is creeping. I will show you where to find my story in the words of other people, but I just can't tell my story right now. Like I said, you can search YouTube. You will find actual. I don't know if it was Dateline. I might have favorited. I might have saved the video somewhere on a list, and if I did, I'll put a link to like Dateline or whatever it was. I would rather people search for it themselves. It's easy for me to just put a bunch of links in the description, but it's something about finding it for yourself and seeing all these hits and then going into this internet hole and just it's not a good feeling to see that there's information that's right there and you didn't know. I really did think I was alone, and normally when you go through a bad situation, it kind of comforts you to know that you're not alone. It did not comfort me. It just made me angrier. The number one question that people will ask is, how in the world how do I not know this? This is such a big deal. It's a huge thing. Okay. How did I not know this? How did we not hear about this? There might have been some articles, maybe Dateline did cover this, but how did this not explode? This big situation that went on for all these years. How did we not know that all this is going on, that all these people are suffering? And I can't answer that question to you because I don't know either. And obviously, I didn't know this was going on until it happened to me. And when I found out that it had been going on, I was like, it was perplexing. I don't understand how we, because I include myself in this, could not know that not only all this crap go on, but the government even admitted it and flat out said that they weren't doing anything about it. How did this get past us? I can't answer that question. I can understand why people don't want to believe this whole thing happened because this is a big deal. How could I not have heard of it? But I still can't have people attacking my character. I can't handle it at this moment. That's why I will tell you to listen to other people's stories. I applaud and am truly proud of every man and woman who had the courage to tell their story publicly and to withstand the inevitable shitty people who invalidate their story and hurt them all over again. And I wish I could be that brave. And obviously, I'm kind of telling my story in a cryptic manner because I'm telling you to find versions of my story out there, but I can't say the words. I can't tell the story. Of course, my story has an addition to it that a lot of the stories don't, because I had the spousal abuse as a prologue to what happened, but the end result is exactly the same and it's just as detrimental. It's estimated that 22 veterans a day take their lives, 8,000 veterans a year, and it is no surprise to many veterans that many of these men and women that are committing suicide is from untreated PTSD, and a lot of times the government knew about it. Either the Department of Defense knew about it and lied and said that they didn't, or the Department of Veteran Affairs knew that they had it and didn't do anything about it. Either way, they're slipping through the cracks. It's a shame. Years ago, I used to think if I screamed loud enough that something would happen, but at this point, after doing more and more research, I have no hope whatsoever that the government will ever turn around and not only completely bring this truly to the public's attention instead of whispering about it, but I know that they will never, ever try to redeem the situation. And if they do, it'll be when I'm like 80 years old. Just like what happened to a lot of the Vietnam vets, all of a sudden, like, hey, oh, we just realized you were here. Come to the VA, when they needed help many years ago. This isn't through the lenses of someone who's a pessimist. I am actually a very optimistic person, but I'm also very realistic. And if I had hope in my heart, I would tell you. I don't. After really getting in there and researching and talking to people who work for the VA, they're not going to do a damn thing. All I'm going to say is that there are things that happen every day that we don't know about, that I don't know about, that sound like a made-up fairy tale. Human beings are beautiful and horrible. And there are some really horrible, gross human beings out there that don't give a crap about you and me. When you have horrific people that are put into positions of authority, that are given power, there are things that will happen that you literally can't make up. And that goes for anywhere, not just the government. That is the truth about human beings. The only thing that keeps me afloat is knowing that obviously not every human being is that creepy and that gross and shitty. Honestly, guys, if I thought that every human being was a piece of trash, I wouldn't be here. I will be completely honest with you. Because the unfortunate thing about the issues that I have is I have to fight, that I almost fight for my life every day. I don't tell people that, and you would never tell that by looking at me, but I do. And if I thought every human being was a piece of trash, I would have been gone. I would be part of that veteran statistic right now, because it would be like, what's the point? If everyone's a piece of trash, why should I even try? But obviously that's not true. Obviously there are amazing human beings out here. When you're living a nightmare every day and you're in pain and you're hopeless and you're feeling hopeless and you're angry because it doesn't happen to everybody that has PTSD, but one of the symptoms that you can get with PTSD is explosive anger that consumes you. It is not a pleasant feeling, but one of the other things that keeps me going is there's a part of my experience that the after effects is that I want to die. But the other half makes me want to live, makes me appreciate life more than I ever did before any of this even happened. You have a situation where I had a bunch of stuff taken away from me. I had a bunch of gross human beings trying to break me down. It did make me appreciate life, because I'm like, no, I deserve to be on this planet as much as everyone else. Why should I let these human beings destroy me? And that's why I'm still here. I have an organic illness, which is bipolar disorder. I say organic because I was born with that. I just didn't know. I knew there was something not right and I was struggling, but I didn't know what to call it until it was diagnosed. But then the PTSD, I say it's not organic because it wasn't something I originally had. Something happened to me. And then there's the anxiety, and I deal with these things. And it's really weird because as much as I struggle, I feel like I'm like 10 times a better person than I was pre-military, pre-abusive marriage. I feel like I'm a better person. Personality-wise, like human-wise, humanity-wise, I'm a better person. I really am a better person. I appreciate people way more. And that's why I was talking about appreciating good people. It's not like I didn't notice good people before, but I appreciate them so much more now. I remember wondering, how could some of these people that did things they did to me, how could they sleep at night, man? Like, they just did what they did, went on with the rest of their life, and they probably have never even thought about me since. They probably never wondered for a second what happened to me after they destroyed my career and pretty much destroyed my life. And I feel the same way about all these other veterans that went through it. No one's thinking about them. And it sickens me. Like, I don't know if anybody watches my videos that serve in the military or have served or have family, friends, spouses. But in my head, I'm thinking, what these people have done, isn't this the exact opposite of what the military stands for? Read the Sailor's Creed. That is the complete opposite of the Sailor's Creed. You're supposed to have your brothers and sisters' backs, because that's what we're supposed to be. We're brothers and sisters. You're supposed to have your sister's back, your brother's back, and you are taking this path of corruptness where you are literally hiding crimes committed and how could you sleep at night? How could you wear that uniform, put that uniform on every day? Now, I know the logic side of people are going to say, well, Joy, there's crappy people all over the place. Of course there are going to be crappy people in the military. I understand that. Duh. I get that. That's life. There are shitty people everywhere. And you can't, there's no, we can't scan people and say, oh, you're a shitty person, you can't join the military. There's no way to know. But it's like, it makes such a mockery of the military, in my opinion. It makes to me, it's a joke. It's a joke to have all these shitty people, just throwing honorable men and women under the bus and protecting the dishonorable ones, and just going about your business like it's a regular day on base. It's shitty. It's just a shitty thing to know and see and hear about over and over again. I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands. What happened to me in the same year that it happened to me? 7,000 others in the Navy alone. In that year alone. 2008 to 2009. In that year alone. You can find those numbers. I don't even want to know what the number is post 9/11 to whenever they supposedly stopped this, like 2010. Don't want to know. Don't tell me. If you find the number, don't tell me. I don't want to know. I really don't. I know enough already. And then this is the problem with me, is I think about this every day of my life. I can't help it. I can't make it go away. I think about this. I think about these thousands of people. I think about every veteran that commits suicide. I think about this every day of my life. And if we did a pie chart and we said, okay, Joy is awake for 16 hours a day, I'm spending about 14 of those hours literally having this in my mind. That would make anyone lose their mind. You cannot sit there and think about this bullshit every day. And I have thought about it every day for how many years now? Almost 10 years. Every day. Every day. I carry this anger and this pain and this hopelessness with me, and I don't do it on purpose. It's not like I'm trying to throw myself a pity party, like I'm purposely sitting here, oh my gosh, woe is me. No, I'm not doing it on purpose. That's the problem with having PTSD and the anxiety sprinkled with the bipolar disorder I already have. You cannot control what your brain keeps doing. It's called intrusive thoughts. And PTSD is a nasty, cancerous thing to have if you don't have it in check. It is literally poison. Anger is poison. You don't have to have a mental illness. Anger is poison. Anger that comes out of PTSD could literally kill you. I don't know if I told this story, but I'll tell it now. I remember the first time that I had an episode of explosive anger from PTSD. I will never forget it because it was horrific. It was shortly after my social worker sent me to see a PTSD specialist in the VA. My social worker outside of the VA is actually completely qualified to treat PTSD, to do PTSD treatments. But in the VA, it's this big chain. So you have to send me to someone else. And this person all but laughed in my face. I'm so not joking. This is a situation that I would not talk about. People who don't understand mental illness don't understand that you can die from mental illness. When people commit suicide, they don't see it as this person died from depression, this person died from this. Because you take your own life, people don't see it as you died from an illness, but that is the case. If someone with depression kills themselves, they died from depression. It ended with suicide, but they still died from that disease. I almost died because of that man. First of all, that situation, what I to this day have not sat down, even with my social worker, and went by the blow by blow, because I'll freaking burn down a building or something. But I've given him little snippets, and he was horrified just by what I told him. That changed a lot for me, but it took a long time to get over that. 1 hour with this disgusting, misogynistic, patronizing man. I mean, oh my gosh. I'm sorry, I hate to be disgusting and sexist, but if you are a female serviceman that suffered from military sexual trauma, do not see a male PTSD specialist in the VA. I mean, any veteran can tell you that the VA needs some serious fixing. They got problems, because I'm not the only one. I've spoken to other female veterans. They got some issues. But anyway, I'm sorry to go back and forth, but another issue with PTSD and severe anxiety is it messes up your memory bad. So I don't know exactly when this was. I think it was 2 years ago, 2 summers ago. I think I saw him in the summer. I was not okay until like March, like no joke. I had never had such a bad depressive episode in my entire life. It was horrific. You're talking about the fact that I had bipolar my whole life and didn't know it. So obviously, you're talking teenage years, college years. I had to have some issues. Nothing compared to this situation. Both my social worker and the psychiatrist that was there at the time, independently of each other, they hadn't even communicated, were like, do you need to go to a hospital? They saw how drastically my health deteriorated. Like I was going to die. I was so deep in depression. I haven't even been that way since. I've had depressive episodes, but nothing like this. But back to this one night. It was the first time that I experienced this PTSD symptom. It was maybe 2 or 3 days after I saw this horrific man, and it was before I fell into this 6-month long depressive episode. And by the way, even if you have a diagnosed illness and you know you suffer from depression, if you are ever depressed that long, you do need to talk to someone because that is not normal for anyone. Even if you have bipolar disorder or depression or any illness that can cause you to be depressed, it is not normal to be depressed for 6 months straight. So even if you're on antidepressants and seeing someone, you need to talk to someone because you could die. I probably should have been hospitalized, but I was being stubborn. 3 months is too long. 6 months, it's like, dude, go to a hospital, okay? But anyway, sorry, I'll get back to what I was saying. I'll never forget it. This one day, it was about 3 days after the issue. I was laying in bed. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I have a nice concoction of all the mental health issues I've told you, so I have racing thoughts anyway because of bipolar disorder, but this was a night like none. I just remember I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden I got hit with this horrific, overwhelming anger. It was like an anger I never felt before in my life. It just came over me, and it was almost painful, this anger. I realized afterwards that depression and feeling low is not the only reason why someone would want to kill themselves, because at that moment the anger that just suddenly exploded was so overwhelming and painful. I wanted to slit my own throat to make the anger end. What's scary is I am not a violent person and I don't consider myself an angry person, but I feel like if somebody was in the room at that moment, I might have like tried to strangle them because I couldn't even think normally, and I ended up calling the suicide hotline because I was like I had to talk to somebody. I was like I mean, oh my gosh, it was so bad. And she's only meowing like that because it's past my bedtime. But I've had some episodes of explosive anger after that, but never as bad as that first time. It just comes over so fast, and it's horrifically overwhelming, and you're just like anything to make it go away, and it's so fast. And this is what's even more scary, is that after it went away, I I honestly cannot tell you what caused it. I obviously had some sort of intrusive thought, which happens a lot with PTSD, or a flashback or something. But I have no idea. I just remember that one moment I was laying in bed, and the next moment I wanted to kill something. I have no idea. Even when I have my panic attacks and stuff like that, no idea. Like, I could not tell you what I was thinking about, what caused it. I don't know how I got on this subject. I think I just wanted to sit down and really talk, because I didn't want people to think that I'm keeping this huge secret. It's just, I need more time before I sit down and tell you guys everything. And that's why I applaud the men and women who have talked, because I'm sure some of them told their story and they weren't ready, or they didn't feel ready, and it took a lot of strength and courage to open their mouth. I feel like a coward, but the thing is, I know how I would react if I bared my soul and told everything and someone said, yeah, you're lying. I know how I would react, and I have to be at a point where I'm not going to react that way, where I can just delete it and just move about my day. I have to get there, because I can't have a situation where I sit here and read I, like I said, bare my soul, read a comment, and then you don't see me for 3 months because I allowed that one comment to trigger depression, or I end up in the hospital. And it's hard to admit that you have a weakness, but it's better that you know your weakness. Some situations you can overcome your weakness by facing it head on and pushing yourself past the limit. This is not the situation. This is a situation where I can actually cause myself harm by putting myself out there when I know I'm not ready for the consequences that inevitably will happen. But I just wanted to sit down and have a real talk with you guys. I know I don't owe anybody anything, but I felt that at the very least, I wanted people to know why I'm not telling that story. I'm just not there yet. You have to look out for yourself mentally and physically. You can't break your leg and be like, well, I'm still gonna run this marathon. Like, no, like, dude, your leg's broken, and that's how it is with me. I'm gonna get there. I know that you guys didn't see, I was missing for a couple years, so you didn't see how sick I was, and even before I left YouTube in 2011, you guys had no idea how sick I was from the abuse and from everything that happened. But trust me when I say that I have healed leaps and bounds, but I'm not 100%. And there's just still a wound that's festering. I have to work on myself a little bit more. What's so funny? If I'm following someone that I like and they're the kind of person that does what I do, just sits in front of a camera and talks, when I see that they have like a 40-minute video, I'm like, yeah, I love long videos, because if I like you, you can sit and read a dictionary and I'll listen to it. But I cannot stand making long videos, because I'm like, no one wants to sit here and watch my dumb ass sit here and talk for an hour. But I can't do it. But I don't want to make this a two-parter. I just need to get this stuff out. I know that I go back and forth, but if you've been following me for a while, you're probably used to that. If you managed to watch this whole video, thank you for listening to me, and take everything I said the way you will. I'm not pushing my views on anybody. I'm doing better day by day, and that's all you can do, is take it day by day, and that's why I'm fidgeting, sorry. So, I'm gonna go. It's 5 minutes to 2. I promise that my next video will be a little more positive. I have like a laundry list of stories and things I want to talk about, but I felt like I had to get this out first, because if I didn't, everything else I said before this was going to be phony, because this was going to be in the back of my head. Have a wonderful week and take care of yourself.